Let's talk about customer loyalty. So, a little bit about myself. I do IT consulting and development. And one of the things I did was put together my own version of a loyalty program and a marketing program for small businesses. Because if you look, for the most part, out there into the field, you see all these businesses that are running all these loyalty programs, restaurants, coffee shops, all kinds of businesses. And of course, if you go to most of the stores out there, they're always running sales. And so initially, my impression was that why don't you just simply lower prices and be done with it? Why run 3 o'clock sale and then 5 o'clock sale? I mean, it seems like they're trying to come up with any kind of sale they can. And then later on, by reading some stuff and looking at the details, I realized that people don't want a cheap price because the cheap price is very relative. What they want is they want a deal. Okay.
Mhm.
And that explains why there are 18 loyalty programs per each person in the United States. And
Mhm.
about 7 or 8 of them are actively in use because they do psychologically what they're intended to do, which is give people ability to save some money in exchange for their loyalty. In terms of loyalty, everybody knows what that means, but what is customer loyalty? And customer loyalty is nothing more than having a loyalty with your customers. I mean, it's not anything dramatic to figure out in that part, but how do you obtain it? And so one of the things that I noticed in terms of different businesses out there is that they completely fall on their face. Not everybody, obviously, but many do. And even the smallest things that they are not willing to do or do it wrong completely kills the loyalty aspect of it. It means it kills the trust. And at the same time, if there is no trust, there's not going to be any business. And so it's amazing to me how many businesses just don't realize that it takes very little to have that loyalty. And the upside of the loyalty is not only do you get more business, people who are truly loyal to you and they like your business, they're not only going to continue to give you business, they're going to bring additional business. They're going to post on Facebook or on Instagram the fact that they went to your restaurant or your business and they like it and they recommend it and they suggest it to their friends or relatives. Having loyalty is a huge thing. And having customer loyalty in businesses like restaurants, for example, is super important. So let's dive a little bit more into it. So one of the things here on this graph here, I mean, not graph, on this image here, it says the word integrity that's underlined. And I think that's one of the things that every business can benefit from. If you don't conduct the business with integrity and you don't provide what you promise, you don't have to over deliver and under promise, which is not a bad thing, but you don't have to do it. But what you have to do is at least deliver on what you did promise. So that's basically part of having high integrity. And if you continue to do it, obviously you'll do well in business. But that's one of the key things that people look for all kinds of ways to do marketing, and they do this and they do that. The bottom line is that they do not handle the integrity part well, and they think they can somehow compensate for lack of integrity with some sort of a marketing ploy or a sale. And it just doesn't work like that. It simply doesn't work like that. So the integrity is super important to be able to have customer loyalty. And customer loyalty is super important to have trust. And if you have trust, then you have business. So what is customer loyalty? Customer loyalty is simply a hypothetical, theoretical, if you will, approach that allows you to have people like and trust you so that they will give you more business. That's basically what it is. Because usually loyalty is easily described in terms of members of the family, friends, things like that. But when it comes to business, it's a different thing. But at the same time, it's really the same thing. It's the same loyalty. You're trying to get people to provide something to them so they will have this affection towards you and they will be loyal to you. And so right there, it says customers who feel connected to your brand are more likely to choose you over competitors. And there is, I think, percentage wise, it's like over 60% of people said they would go to place A with customer loyalty program if they actually are loyal to the place, then go to place B that doesn't have one. So loyalty programs are important because they solidify the loyalty itself. So people come to the place, they give them business. Basically, they show their affection, they show their loyalty by giving business. And of course, people who become loyal customers, they're the ones who come more, they spend more money, statistically speaking, and at the same time, they come more often. So businesses will end up benefiting much more so from existing customers and repeat and loyal customers than from any other kind of customers. And at the same time, as loyal customers are more profitable and less expensive to retain than acquiring new ones. This is, again, statistically proven to be the case. So businesses should always try to concentrate as much effort as they can on existing customers if they want to generate more business. And of course, people like deals. People don't want cheap prices because cheap price is a very relative term. For example, you can look at the $100 pencil, for example, and you think it's horribly expensive. And then you look at $15,000 Tesla and you think it's steal of the year. So how is it that $100 is expensive, but $15,000 is cheap? And that's all because it's all relative. It depends on what item it is, what value you get, everything else. So the bottom line is people do like to get deals, and having a customer loyalty in place, giving them some sort of incentive for being loyal customers, that usually drives people much more so to particular business, and they love it. Again, as long as the integrity is in place, I just want to reemphasize that the loyalty program by itself does nothing if the business doesn't provide proper amount of support, has the high integrity, and provides the product or service, whatever it might be, the best level that they can. Because if it's a crappy product or if it's crappy service, it doesn't matter if you have a loyalty program. It doesn't matter if you have sales going on. It doesn't make any difference. You're not going to have loyal customers. So all of these things become useless, including marketing and sales. First, you need to deliver on what you're promising to your customers in terms of both the product itself, the quality of it, and at the same time, the service level. And if you deliver those two, then the next step is how do you make people to be more loyal? And that's where loyalty programs come in. That's basically what establishes that. Why customer loyalty matters for small business. Loyal customers form a stable base of revenue. And the reason for this, if you have somebody who is loyal to your business, they will keep coming back. It's not just the fact that they call themselves loyal, it's the fact that they keep coming back. That's why you have a stable base of revenue, because these customers can hold you much more so in business than other kinds of customers. And when you have things like COVID and things like that happening, that makes a huge difference, because if you have this group of loyal customers, they will stick with you through thick and thin usually. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. Case in point being, for example, I have one restaurant in my loyalty program called Frequent Dividends. And when COVID hit, they shut the doors completely, like many other businesses did. But then later on, after X amount of time passed, they reopened part-time and then full-time. And so they brought the loyalty program back. But at the same time, one of the things that they had that other people didn't have is they have currently through my service that they're using, my loyalty program, which is white label, is basically their loyalty program. They have a list of, I think, close to 1,400 people now. This is just one Mexican restaurant in a small town that they can email or text. They have their names, their emails, and phone numbers, and they can send any kind of messages they want to them, invite them back, tell them about specials. And they did. They actually said they're reopening again. And so they had a much better business situation having all these people invited to their restaurant, because people didn't know that they were open or not. Unless people checked, they wouldn't know. And so they had this direct path of going to all these customers. So it's important to have both ability to have these obviously loyal customers, but also need to be able to communicate with them in some way. So then you can establish not only communication path, but also be able to invite them back, tell them about special, tell them about news, things like that. So that creates a situation where you're continuing to run your business even through the tough times if you have that capability. Then, of course, you have the word of mouth, which is people talk, people bring their friends, people bring their family. And so you got a guy coming in and he brings 4 people from the office. You know, again, if there's a loyalty program, he winds up getting whatever benefits he's going to get from the loyalty program. And so the business benefits because all these additional people came. And then, of course, when these people come, just like any kind of word of mouth for any business, then they may, if they like it, which goes back to my initial point about having integrity in terms of what you're providing in terms of service or product, then of course they invite other people. And so it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So word of mouth is huge, and having loyal customers really helps in that area as well, which results in more customers, which results in more business, which results in more profit. And also, when you specifically deal with a group of people like that who are your loyal customers, it also puts you slightly different from all the other competitors that are doing similar kind of things. Because if the customer is loyal to you, I mean, I don't know how many Mexican restaurants we have. We have a ton of Mexican restaurants. But at the same time, all these people, these 1,300, 1,400 people that signed up with this particular restaurant, they keep coming back to this restaurant because they like it. So the loyalty program gives them an incentive to come back, a financial incentive. But at the same time, because they're loyal customers, they keep coming back. In other words, would they come back if there wasn't some sort of a loyalty program in place? Obviously, some would, some wouldn't. But loyalty program is something that kind of gives them a little non-threatening nudge to say, keep coming back. We're going to keep giving you discounts. So essentially, one way to look at the loyalty program is something that you're kind of bribing people. You're saying, you come in, and if you keep coming back, we're going to give you discounts. So it's kind of like a bribe. But at the same time, because everybody understands that's what it is, it's not anything that anybody's hiding. It's okay to do it because everybody's on board. Everybody understands how it works. So it's not anything like illegal or even unethical. It's just like any kind of business deal. If you give me X amount or whatever, I'm going to give you that kind of discount. People do it all the time. It's the same thing with this kind of deal in small businesses, that you can provide this additional incentive for people to keep coming back and be loyal to you. Okay. So that's kind of how that part works. Moving on here. What are the strategies for building customer loyalty? Number one is personalization. Right now, it's super important, and with technology we have today, it's definitely doable. Meaning that you're trying to figure out and somehow document somewhere or systemize somehow a way to know what these people specifically want. Like an example, since I was talking about restaurants, let's talk about a restaurant as a specific example. If you go to a coffee shop, like I guess Starbucks would be a good example. You come in there every day or every other day, however often you come, you're a loyal customer and you come often, and the John, who is the barista at the counter there, says, oh, like, would you like the usual? I say yes. And he knows that I usually take this kind of coffee with this kind of pastry. And so he just automatically rings it up and we're done. So that's one of the reasons I keep coming back to that particular Starbucks. It's not because I don't have any other choice. In Seattle here, we have hundreds of those places. We have some places where you have two Starbucks on the same corner, basically. So we actually have, it's Starbucks galore here. But at the same time, I keep going to that one. Yes, partially it's geographical, but it's more so because of knowing this guy and this guy knowing what I usually drink. And so it becomes a personalized experience like this, which makes a huge difference in terms of my loyalty. My loyalty is actually much more so to John in that particular case than to Starbucks itself. But I keep coming back to that place because of the situation with personalization. So if businesses take a little bit of time to get to know some of their customers and find out what they're specifically interested in terms of doing business, it goes a long way. In other words, when people talk to you, they don't say, hello, you. Okay. If they say hello, Gordon, it makes a huge difference. If you're Gordon, obviously, but you know what I'm saying, it's one of these things that's super important for most of us because we have our own identity. So when somebody acknowledges what we are and what we'd like, it makes a big deal in terms of doing business. So personalization is definitely huge. With today's technology, is definitely doable. Another thing is to innovation. And so it's important when you're trying to keep things interesting and keep things competitive, you need to constantly innovate in terms of what kind of solutions you provide in terms of product, services, and the loyalty rewards as well. So you might want to mix it up from time to time. You're offering one reward, then you're offering some other reward or a discount. And so you just kind of, depending on what the situation is, what the seasonality is, all of these things play in effect. But basically, you need to innovate. You can stay stable and expect the same results all the time, just like same thing in business. It's the same recommendation. Then you get to the point about communicating. So you need to be able to give the customers, the loyal customers, and change customers to be the loyal customers. You need to know what it is that they like and they want, which means you need to communicate with them. I mean, you can't just guess it. So you have to talk to them. So that's where, again, if you have a customer loyalty program and you have this ability to communicate with them via email or texting, it makes a huge difference. Because if you look at it from a perspective of, let's say you just have a loyal customer, but you don't have any way to contact them. Okay. That means that you can't find out anything from them, number one. I mean, if the guy comes in to buy a cup of coffee, you don't have enough time to really establish a relationship because you have 20 other people standing behind them. So that's a problem. You cannot do it. At the same time, when you're talking about emails, I don't know about you guys, but I get hundreds and hundreds of emails daily. I mean, it's a task every day just to clear my inbox. Okay. And so with that being the case, I'm sure all of us, maybe some more, some fewer, but it's a problem that everybody has. So when you're talking about being able to communicate, when you have this barrage of data coming at you, you go to social media and a zillion different posts and a zillion different ads, and you go to a lineup, or you go here, you go there. Bottom line is we're constantly inundated with unbelievable amount of data being thrown at us. And so to be able to stand out and pick something particular or be somebody particular, it's a very, very difficult thing to accomplish in today's environment. One way that could be accomplished, though, is if you have this direct communication with people who specifically want you to communicate with them. So the loyalty situation is such that if you have a loyal environment, that means that these people actually want to hear from you and want to do business with you. Okay. And so when you communicate with them because they opted in to communicate with you and to find out about the business and give you business and so on and so forth, that's a way for you to kind of stand out from everybody else, from all this noise. But you need to have this communication path to be able to do it. Okay. And obviously you need to communicate properly, but bottom line is that allows you to do this communication part. And another thing that is a huge thing for loyalty is not just providing customers with a good product or service, but you also need to have your employees be empowered to provide, as it says here, exceptional experiences. So it varies from place to place, from business to business, what that would be. It's kind of a general term, except what is an exceptional experience? Well, number one, it's a subjective thing to say because it's in the eye of the beholder. If somebody says, hello, Peter, when Peter comes through a coffee shop and Peter has never seen this guy, and the guy says, hello, Peter, thanks for coming back, then Peter most likely would be pleasantly surprised because he's never seen this guy before. And yet he's calling him by his first name as he's coming in to get his cup of coffee. That's a little bit of an exceptional experience because if Peter goes to any other place and they don't do it, it makes a difference. And you think, what, the guy's just called your name. I mean, what is the big deal, right? But for a lot of people, it makes a big difference. If people know what they order, if people know their name, if somebody asks for something and is being provided, whatever it might be, it makes a huge difference to a lot of people. So the empowerment of employees is very important. How do you provide proper customer loyalty and generate more business and more profits? And the answer is using technology. There's no way that in the old days, they used to use these paper punch cards. You have a little card you print and you say, every time you come back, we'll punch it. And then after so many times, we're going to give you, a free cup of coffee or free meal or whatever it might be, 50% off. Okay. That's something that was done. Some businesses still do it, but it's a very outdated and pretty poor way of doing it. So you need to use technology to be able to provide proper assistance to these people using some sort of fairly easy to use loyalty program. And shameless plug, that's one of the things BCS does. So if any of you are interested in having your own customer loyalty program branded to you and works fairly seamlessly behind the scenes, doesn't require any downloads or installs, does use phones, but no apps to download or install of any kind, then just talk to us and we'll be happy to talk to you about that. But it does two things, basically. It provides the loyalty part. So there is some sort of an offer and some sort of reward, and people can easily sign up with their phones and then use it. And at the same time, it provides the business ability to have a growing list of their ideal customers. Okay. What do I mean by ideal? These are the people who know the business at least a little bit. These are the people who chose to go through a special onboarding process to get into this particular loyalty program. And they're willing to give up their personal contact information. So they basically went through several steps right there to be able to participate. They're opting in to say, we want to do business with you. So that's what I mean by having these people being ideal customers. And then on the flip side of it, the business itself has this growing database of these ideal customers of theirs. And it's a perfect list of people to market to afterwards. Obviously, you don't want to be abusing the privilege, but at the same time, it's something that these people opted in to do, which they can easily opt out, by the way. But at the same time, you can be informing them of things. Again, it's this direct communication pathway. And you can upsell stuff. You can do all kinds of things since you have this direct communication way to deal with them. Our loyalty program is kind of two-phase deal. It's loyalty on one hand and the marketing on the other hand. You don't have to use the marketing part if you don't want to. You can just use the loyalty part, or our recommendation to use both. All right, enough of the self-promotion. So digital platform is definitely the way you want to do it. You can do mobile app, which is not something I like to do because there's too many apps to download and install. So our system doesn't do that, but that's one way how a lot of people handle it. Then you can have SMS campaigns. You can have online community to keep customers engaged. So there's different ways you can use digital approach to keep loyal customers kind of like a tribe and then doing things with them. So you can set up rewards any way you want. You can have like one of our restaurants says, buy 9 meals, we'll get you the 10th meal free. So they do that way. Another restaurant says, every time you come in, we'll give you 10% off. Then you have the things like this cashback, 100% cashback offer for 2 days. If whatever you're buying, if you're not happy with it, we'll give you all your money back. Okay. So people do all kinds of different ways to create rewards to entice people to participate. And obviously you can create your own to be whatever you want it to be. And then some of the latest things that they use in terms of technology is this example here is this AR technology, which is a combination of both visuals that are in real life. You can see just basically a picture of a store selling clothes. And then you see this computer generated card above the clothes that gives some information about it. So it's basically, this is what AR stands for, augmented reality. You're looking at real things. That's the reality part, but it's augmented slightly with digital to help with the cause, if you will. So they have this digital card there. And so as you walk around the store, if you use your phone and use this particular app, then you're able to see additional information about this particular piece of clothing that you're looking at. You can see the rating there. You can see the description. So definitely a much better experience for a customer than just seeing the items for sale themselves. So people are definitely getting more and more. And of course, now with AI coming in, that adds a whole another aspect to quality of this thing. Here are some examples, just a bunch of little examples of different loyalty programs. As you can see, some of these have the paper punch card type approach on the right there. And there's all kinds of different businesses. Again, there are 18 customer loyalty programs subscriptions for every single resident of the United States. Okay. And about half of them, 7 or 8 of them, are actively being used. It's a very, very popular concept. And the reason it's so popular is because people like to get deals. That's the reason it's so popular. And the reason businesses are running it, as many businesses see the light, if you will, not everybody, obviously, but a ton of businesses, because they understand that this is the case. Their customers like it. So they're providing them with means to be able to become loyal to them by using these programs. So they keep coming back and giving them more business. What are some of the challenges and mistakes people make? Number one is programs being rigid. In other words, they come up with a loyalty program, and if they later figure out this loyalty program wasn't ideal, but they continue running it anyway. So that's one way to do it, is you need to have your loyalty program be flexible and adjusted based on what the customers want. Because in the end, you're doing this for your customers. I mean, the final benefit is to you as the business getting more business, but essentially what you're doing in terms of the service and the product, everything, you're doing it for somebody else. When I usually build websites, a lot of times people come to me asking me to build a website for them, for their business. And it's amazing how many times people say, well, can you make this blue bluer? And can you move this like maybe 2 or 3 pixels up? And I always kind of roll my eyes because do you really think you're going to get more revenue if this particular box is 3 pixels higher? And I don't ask them that, but it's a ridiculous thing to even think about, that they wanted to move up. So they become these people who try to they can create the website on their own. So they're trying to create it through somebody else. And that, in this particular case, me. And main thing that they're completely forgetting is that this website is not for them. The website is for the prospects and current customers and new customers, not for the owners of the business. They make it their own baby, like they're making it for themselves, which is a completely wrong approach. Same thing here. If you're creating a customer loyalty program, you want to make sure it fits the needs of your customers, because it's called customer loyalty, not owner loyalty, customer loyalty. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You want to make it flexible, number one. Number two, we have this point system. We're going to give you 3 points for this and 10 points for that and 15 points for that. And in the end, you end up with a reward, which you can go right now and get 3/4 of a hamburger for the points that you have. So number one, it makes it confusing. It's not very easy and simple to understand everything, because it's just this hodgepodge of, you get so many points here, you get so many points here. And at the same time, like I said, you get a situation where you have a reward. You can't really claim the reward because you have points and you say, can I use my points? And they tell you it's enough for 3/4 of one hamburger. Obviously, totally ridiculous. So you want to make sure it's as simple as possible when you're talking about rewards. So it's easy for people to understand and they're going to use it then. Otherwise, you're basically driving them away. The communication part is important, and your loyalty program needs to provide this communication path of some sort. It doesn't have to be emails and texts. Ideally, it would be both, because you can use text for more immediate things. You can use emails for longer communications. But the point is, you need to have something to be able to communicate with people on a continuous basis. You don't want to spam people. You'd want to just send them all kinds of stuff on a daily basis about anything and everything, because they're just going to simply opt out. But you do want to communicate with them at certain normal intervals, consistently, and provide the information that would be of use to them. Okay. And at the same time, it gives you ability to get feedback from them, to see what specifically they'd like to see in a newsletter or future communications. If it's a restaurant, how do they like the food? How do they like the service? All these things are super important because it makes people feel important, number one. And that's always a good thing if you make your customers feel important, because you're actually listening to what they're saying. And then, of course, the next step is not just to ask them and do nothing. You actually want to look at what they're saying, and if there's some changes that need to be implemented in your business, implement them if you can. I mean, it needs to be reasonable. It needs to make sense to you, and it needs to be doable, all these things. But the important thing is you need to listen to what these people are saying, okay, if you want them to continue to be your loyal customers, and then actually show them that you're doing what they're asking for. They're going to be 10 times more loyal after that if you do that, okay? And then it says here, underestimating costs. So with any kind of program that you don't actually create on your own, that you have to go out to purchase or develop by a company, there's going to be costs involved. There's usually initial setup cost involved. Potentially, some companies charge ongoing maintenance costs. Some people set it up as a SaaS, software as a service platform. This is what our frequent dividends program is people pay on a monthly basis, and then they can cancel anytime. And so the bottom line, there are certain costs involved. Even if you run the old style punch cards, it's also coming with costs. You need to print so many cards. Nobody's going to print cards for free. And you need to replenish them every so often. Again, costs, ongoing costs. There's always costs associated with almost everything, including loyalty programs. So you want to make sure that when you get into it, before you get into it, you understand what those costs would be. Is there a setup fee? How much is it? Is there going to be ongoing monthly cost? How much is it? Are there any additional costs that may come in? Okay, let's say you wanted to do something like you wanted to do a special mailing that you want for example, to have done by some marketing company. Okay. So you wanted to create the content, you wanted to mail, you have the database. Let's say if you use, for example, our frequent dividends, you would have a database because these are your people, but you need to have somebody, not because you can't yourself necessarily, you just don't have time or interest in doing a mailing and coming up with the content. There's Cinco de Mayo is coming up and you want to do something special for Cinco de Mayo. So you have this marketing company that usually handles your marketing. You want them to do this mailing. You just provide them the list of people to mail and do that. Okay, that's all fine and dandy, but they're not doing it for free. So you may have a situation where they do it for you a certain amount of stuff, including this as part of the fee that they charge, or they might be charging you one-offs depending when you request these special things. But the bottom line is there's always different costs. So you want to make sure you fully understand what these costs will be. And so you're fully informed and aware of what's going on. What's some of the tips and best practices for implementing a customer loyalty program? Number one is define your goals. The basic concept is, okay, we want more business. Everybody will tell you that. Okay, what do you want your loyalty program to do? I want more business. I want more profit. Okay, that's great. Everybody will say that, but it doesn't mean anything. Okay, it's too generic. You need to be more specific. If you really want to accomplish something, it needs to have a specific set of goals that you establish with your management team, ownership of the company, team, all the people basically involved, including potentially even regular employees. You need to define the goals. What do you want this particular loyalty program for your business to look like? What do you want it to accomplish in X amount of time? Get more specific, okay, of what this particular endeavor would take. Second thing is, in addition to defining your goals, you also need to know who are you doing it for. You have the loyalty program, but who are the customers who are going to participate? So you need to understand and tailor your program based on these people who you're going to be targeting. So you need to know your audience. For people, for example, in the restaurant business, it's pretty simple. Obviously, anybody who comes to the restaurant would be fair game to at least offer the loyalty program to. Most people would pass, not most, I shouldn't say. Some people will pass because they're not your loyal customers, but the loyal customers will see this opportunity to save money and they typically come back anyway. That's what makes them loyal. Then yeah, to be able to do that, you need to know who they are. But in some other businesses that are not restaurants, it's not so clear cut. So you need to know specifically who your audience is, who you're going to target with this particular loyalty program that you're setting up. Again, keeping it simple is super important. People do not like to do complicated and confusing stuff. If you come up with all kinds of different ways of all these different points, and if you buy this or if you don't buy that, and if it's by this date, all this stuff just basically makes people want to go, forget it. I'm just going to go somewhere else, or I'm going to do something else. They don't want complexity. There's enough complexity in people's lives on a daily basis. They don't want any additional complexity. They want something simple and they'll accomplish the goal. In their case, they're trying to go to a place that they like. And at the same time, they want to save some money. That's basically it. If you ask anybody who's a member of a loyalty program, they don't care about anything else. The only other thing they care about, it needs to be simple. Okay. If I have to get some kind of card out of my wallet and at the same time spill 10 other cards on the floor, and then I have to go and punch in my phone number to log in, and you just forget it, not doing it. Okay. So like in our system, for example, the way it works is you come in and you simply use your phone to scan a QR code. You just basically pull up your camera and it'll scan the QR code. And then you show whatever is on the screen to the server. That's it. Okay. That's how simple it is to do that. Can't really get much simpler than that. So you want to make sure whatever is a customer loyalty program you have, it's very, very simple for people to use. And at the same time, it's very simple for the business running it to both implement and use it on a daily basis as well. So it needs to be simple for both entities. Keep it simple. Okay. And then in terms of keeping it creative, yeah, you need to innovate, create different unique experiences. You need to make it more than just simple savings if you can, because it will make the loyalty part be that much more interesting to people coming in, and it will make them that much more interested in spreading the word around to their family, their friends, their office, and so on. So you have to kind of think about some of the things you can do. This is not mandatory, this part, in terms of being creative, because you still need to run your business. You're not, sitting there trying to create loyalty programs. But at the same time, if you can come up with something that would be somewhat unique because other people can also run loyalty programs. So when you say between the restaurant A, who has a loyalty, and restaurant B, who doesn't have a loyalty, over 60% will go to restaurant A. That makes sense. That's simple. Okay. But what if restaurant A runs a loyalty program and restaurant B runs a loyalty program? Then you have to come up with something different to make your stuff be more compelling. The simple solution is you give them better rewards. Yeah, but sometimes you can't do that because you got to remember, you still need to make money. It's very nice to offer people discounts, not to the point where you're losing money. Otherwise, why stay in business? So it needs to be a situation where you're giving people discounts and you appreciate them coming back all the time, but you still need to be making money regardless. And so if you have two different businesses that are very similar and maybe in this close proximity, and at the same time they're running similar kind of discounts, assuming that the products and services are also similar. So let's say you have two restaurants, food is good in both, service is good in both, everything is pretty much even. Okay. So how do you make people be more loyal to you than somebody else? That's where this creativity comes in. That's where you can actually, as it says, where they think outside of the box a little bit and create something that will make the experience somewhat unique. And there's all kinds of ways to do it. Nothing particular specific, but that's the best ways to try to think about that if you have that problem. Okay. If you don't have that problem in terms of having additional businesses like yours close in proximity and the service and quality, then you don't have to be creative. You just do the loyalty program and people will come. So basically I'll finish with that. And I want to thank everybody for coming and for listening to this presentation. If you do have any questions about our frequent dividends loyalty program, please contact me on Alignable or just go to our website, PCS, Paul Charlie Sam, -works, WORKS.com. So PCS-works.com. There's a contact page there. And also there is a whole page dedicated to frequent dividends, the loyalty program. There is a video there you can check out. There's also a QR code in there that you can actually use to try it yourself. You can just scan the QR code and see how the whole thing works. So you can see how simple it is and how it can be implemented in your business. Pretty much any kind of business will qualify. It's not just for restaurants. Restaurants are kind of low-hanging fruit because there's tons of them, and all the higher-end restaurants, you look at McDonald's and Applebee's and Olive Gardens, they all have their own IT departments and they all have their own programs that were designed specifically for them by their own people. But the mom and pop shops out there, which there's a lot of them there, they don't have the resources or know how to create their own. They need to compete. They need the loyalty program just as much as McDonald's does. And so this is where our frequent dividends comes in, and we help people establish their own branded to them loyalty program. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and thank you for your time.